again, and welcome to Media War Stories, behind the scenes tales from the front lines of the media. I am your host, Tom Curley. How are you all today? Yet another episode where we talk with old friends that used to be in the entertainment biz about all the crazy stuff that happened to us in front of and behind the scenes. And of course, the one we do it with the mostest, the hostess with the mostest, or host with the most. I don't know how that came out. Mr. Gary Armstrong. Gary, how the hell are you today?
I'm fine. You just put me as the hostess or the host with the mostest. You just put me in the same
Mostest.
category with, and you have to be of a certain age. Elsa Maxwell, way back when she was
Elsa
known as the
Maxwell
hostess with the mostest.
with
I
the
won't put
mostest.
myself in that
Yeah.
category. And as to how I
Yeah.
feel, um, we don't make this too out of league with what our viewers expect, but we had decided this week because of varying appointments that we would do the show another day, and then you called a few minutes ago, and I had just started eating a late breakfast, and there are a lot of cobwebs in my mind. So I'm going to tell you this: if I'm a little bit off course today, I've gotten in touch with the little people who work in my brain, and they're on standby. If I get into trouble, the little people will help me. So let's sail this ship out of the
Yeah.
harbor.
And I quite frankly think most people that watch us regularly won't even notice, because how can you tell? This is our natural. This is this is our natural state. Yeah, I had a doctor's appointment, uh, which I won't go into. I have a thing every 4 or 5 months. I have to have a pint of blood taken out of me and thrown away. I have a
Ooh.
condition where my body holds retains ferritin, retains iron, and I have too many red blood cells. I'm the opposite of an anemic. And the ironic thing is that the cure for it is, well, they call it a phlebotomy, but in reality, it's medieval bloodletting. They take a pint of blood, they throw it away, and now the body has to replace the blood minus all the iron. And it works
Right.
fine. I've been doing it for years. Today was particularly rough because I don't know if we had a new nurse or something, but she had a hard time finding a vein. But she did find a lot of pain.
Uh,
No vein, but a lot of pain. And then, of course, what then happens is the supervisor comes in, who is amazing. She just first try does it, doesn't hurt, wham bam, you know.
yeah, we have that problem here with Marilyn and Owen, Marilyn's son, has the same thing when they go in to have blood work done. I know we said we were going to push this item down into the show, but we're into it now, and that's classic Tom and Gary. We say we're going to do it one way, and we wind up doing it another way, but we're into it now. So we're talking about vaccinations, and this one for me is work related. I forget what year; it doesn't really matter, but it was this time of the year we were giving blood for the Salvation Army, and I had been scheduled to sub for the noon anchor that day. So I was all psyched and ready and pumped and ready to do another anchoring job and hopefully do it well. But the station had also scheduled me and a couple of other on-air people to donate blood that day. And as it would happen in the world of television news, they called me down to give blood about 15 to 20 minutes before I was due to go on the air. I protested and they said, "You're just going to do it. You can do it."
You can do it!
So I went down to the medical place and I had the same problem that day as you have had. They had problems finding a vessel that they could get into. So by the time they were through with me, I was kind of wobbly, more wobbly than usual. And somebody yelled, "You're going to be on the air in 3 or 4 minutes." And I said, "But I just gave," and they said, "It doesn't matter. No one will know. All they'll see is your face and hear what you're saying." But I said, "But I'm a little dizzy from what just, it doesn't matter. Get up there." So I wobbled up and into the newsroom. I sat down, put the headset on, looked at the script. Teleprompter was working, and someone into my ear said, "How you doing, big fella?" And I said, I'm not sure. I just gave blood. I'm a little wobbly. And they said, that's great. We'll be on the air in 1 minute. And I said, didn't you hear what I just said? And they said, it doesn't matter. We'll be on the air in 1 minute. And they said, can you open your eyes? And I said, what's the matter? And they said, you're cross-eyed right now. And I said, but I just gave blood. And they said, we're rolling. And the show went on. And wouldn't you know, it was one of the best anchor jobs I ever did in my professional life. And I think, as I've told you, anchoring was never my strong suit. But if I had thought about it then, maybe, Tom, maybe if I had given blood on the days that they had an anchor slot open, maybe I could have made it big time. Just take
Yeah,
blood out
you
of
know
me and I'll be even better.
the uh, the answer could have just been low blood pressure, and that would have solved it. Well, I actually, all right, seeing that, all right, we got into it. What the hell? I do have some medical war stories. Uh, when
Good.
in my senior year of high school and 2 summers after that while I was in college, I was an intern, not an intern, and which listed, I was an orderly. Okay. And well, no, the reason that's funny is that by my first year I was an orderly, and we were standing there working on a patient, and the patient, I was there with an intern and the head nurse, and the patient asked, she said, "What's the difference between an orderly and an intern?" And without missing a beat, the nurse said, "About $10,000 a year, and that's it." And I just went like, right, and thank God the intern went right over her head. Just didn't even hear it. Um, so then I became in the following years I became an emergency room technician, which was really an intern with a better title, because I had been there and
Yes.
they liked me. But weird things do happen in a hospital, and I'll tell the funniest one first. So we're up one day. We're on a medical floor, okay, and all of a sudden, down the hall comes this 80-year-old lady, and she's running, and she's screaming at the top of her lungs. The bed is trying to eat me. The bed is trying to eat me. And I also forgot to mention she's stark naked. Okay,
Oh
so
my
me
goodness.
and yes, so me and one of the nurses, we immediately I grab a sheet from the laundry and we tackle this poor lady. I mean, we don't tackle her to the ground, but we intercept her. I wrap a sheet around her, and now we're trying to take her back to her room, and
Right.
she's in a panic, and she's fighting us. The bed is trying to eat me. The bed is trying to eat me. And you'd be surprised. This woman probably weighed 90 pounds soaking wet, but boy, they can be strong. And so
Right.
anyway, so we drag her, literally kicking and screaming, and we get to the room, and what we see is apparently the hospital bed shorted out. And what it was doing
Oh,
is it was going like
wow.
this. It's gone. And now the nurse and I are on the floor laughing because the bed, in fact, was trying to eat her, right? And she's going, "See, the bed is trying to eat me. The bed is trying to eat me." And so it took us a while to get over that one. Um, and then the other, well, this is really gross, but what the hell? Um, one of the jobs of an orderly, one of the jobs of an orderly is to take when somebody dies. Our job is to take them down to the morgue. Okay,
Right.
and so the first time that ever happened with me, I was on a floor, and the nurse came up and she said, "You need to go up to the third floor and help this other orderly. A patient has expired." Now, for some reason, in my teenage brain, the word expired meant, you expire, you exhale, you inhale.
Right.
I looked at her and I went, "Well, what why do I have to go up there? Because he's breathing. And she goes, he's not breathing. He's dead, you moron. Go up there and take the body down to the morgue. So, so I go up. I'm a little sheepish, So the nurses had prepared the body. And, recently, so the family is outside the room, and they're all crying. Their dad, their husband just died. So me and the other orderly, we're in the room, and the curtain is closed, and we're trying to be very, very respectful because, the family's outside, and the guy just died,
Yeah.
So he's a big guy, about 6 foot tall. So he's laid out on the bed, and all we had to do was lift him up, put him on a gurney, put a sheet over him, and take him down to the morgue. So my partner goes, all right, I'll take the legs, you take the shoulders. And we go, okay, 1, 2, 3, and we lift him up, and we put him on the gurney. And when he hits the gurney, here's what happens. He farts. Okay? And I mean, not just farts, he farts. Okay? So now it turns out this is not unusual. A dead body will expel gas. Okay?
Gas, yes.
And well, the problem is that at first, my partner and I are so shocked that we almost scream, but we don't. And now we're laughing. We're on the floor. We can't stop laughing, but we can't laugh out loud because we don't want the grieving family outside to hear, why are these guys laughing their asses off over dad? So you're laughing about. So that was fun, and but the final one, and then we'll get to what we were going to talk about, which was my favorite. We had a patient. He was there for about, I'd say, a good 6 months. He was in an auto accident, and for the first 3 months, it screwed his brain up. He had injuries. And for the first 3 or 4 months, he sat in his room and he just watched TV. Never said a word. Never said a word. And then, all of a sudden, 3 months later, he never shut up. But everything he said was always crazy. And I was just as sick then as I am now. I loved to play games to see if I could, out crazy him or figure out what he was going to say. Try to get in the mind of the crazy person. And it never worked. It never worked. And he would do weird things like I'd come in and I'd go, how you doing? And he'd say, not good, not good. I said, what's the matter? And he goes, Wisconsin, they're moving it. And I go, really? I sort of liked it in between Minnesota and Michigan. Where are they moving it to? And he goes, next to an airport. And it was always stuff like that, and he would always look at you, like you were crazy if you gave the wrong answer. So I came in one day, and he's in a wheelchair, and the nurse is taking him out, and I go, Wilson, how you doing, dude? Where you going? And he looks at me with a straight face, and he goes, deep therapy. And I go, deep therapy? What's that? He goes, they take your insides out. And I go,
oh, wow.
Whoa.
Huh?
And I said, and they give you a new set? And I go, they give you a new set? And he goes, no, they clean them and put them back. So I'm going like, okay, right? And I think nothing of it. All right. Now, fast forward 1 year. I am now working as an emergency room technician. And it's 3 o'clock in the morning. And I am taking a gurney back to a section of the hospital I had never been in. It was in like the radiology therapy something section. But I'd never been there. And it was 3 in the morning, and all the lights were out in the hallway, except so all that was on was the emergency lights. Okay, so it was dark, middle of the night, all by myself. And as I park the gurney, I look, and at the end of the hall is a door, a really big
Yeah.
door, okay? And on it is a brass plaque. And I look at the plaque and it says deep therapy.
Oh my God.
And, and I and I go, I'm sorry. There, the sound effect, pwee, 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 and then go like, ah. And I just slowly walked away. I don't know what was behind that door. I do not know. It's probably, probably, hydrotherapy or something. But holy mackerel, absolutely a true story. So yeah, so
that
that's that.
that is
But
so
anyway,
Mel
what?
Brooks, you know.
That kid gets no tip.
Wait a minute. Before this is what we do. So why apologize? I'm waiting for the men in the white suits to come in and get both of us and take us away. One more on the hospital front, and I think Marilyn was around for this one. I had gone in for some kind of procedure, and they had given me the laughing gas. Now the surgery is over, and I'm slowly being brought back to normal, but I'm still under the influence of the gas, and I can hear them saying. Now wait for this one. I can hear them saying, "As I'm trying to figure out how I'm doing, did it go well? Where am I?" Just feeling bizarre as you do in that situation. I could hear them saying, "It's Gary Armstrong." Oh, I watch this guy all the time, and he's right here. He's right here in our medical room. And oh, maybe you can get his autograph, Gary. We loved you. And I'm, where am I? What the heck happened? And can you can you give me an autograph? And I'm wondering, where am I? Am I on a story? And slowly, the brain began to clear, and I realized I was out of surgery, and the anesthesia was starting to wear off. And these people, these professionals, were around me and talking about my time on the air. And I was wondering, is this bizarre? Are they playing a joke on me? And instead of being a patient, I was this new celebrity who had just been some kind of surgery, and no one had the time or the presence to say, "How are you doing? The surgery went well. In 10 minutes, your wife will be here to take you away." We love that story you did, and I just thought, once again, karma is coming back and hitting me squarely in the face because of all the things I've done. Now we're going to step over. Um, I remembered this story last night, and I know I sent you a note so I wouldn't forget to talk about it. But we talk about old movies a lot, and back in I think it was 1974, they were making doing a remake of The Great Gatsby, and they were shooting in Providence, Rhode Island, and that's the only reason I'm able to tell this story. Since it was in Providence and they had an all-star cast with Robert Redford and a bunch of other people, they uh, they decided that they being the station, this is a great little feature bit. And they said, Gary loves movies. Let's send him down to do it. And I was excited about it. And I had done some stories in Providence prior to that. And I always found it really kind of, I'm trying to find the right word, kind of cool that they call those mansions cottages. So one thing led to another, and we go down to the set in Providence, and they had all the film stars around, including Mr. Redford and the director. And no problem because the news coverage was publicity for them. So we're shooting the other people shooting the movie, and I'm always finding that kind of thing exciting. And I'm looking around to see who from the cast I might be able to get to. And of course, Redford being the star was not available, at least not available to me. So off in the corner of one of the sets, I see a face that I remembered, and I don't know whether you recall this particular gentleman. His name was Howard Da Silva. He was a character actor. He played a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of really interesting roles
Mm-hmm.
over the course of a career that went maybe 20 or 30 years. One of
Oh
the
yeah.
movies I remembered him doing was 2 years before The Mast, which starred Alan Ladd, and Howard Da Silva played kind of a Charles Lawton mean captain of the ship. But anyway, I recognized Howard De Silva, and I walked over and I introduced myself, and he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, we're here shooting you folks doing the movie." Well, so why are you here with me? And I said, "Well, I recognize you, and I've enjoyed all your work." He said, "You've seen my movies. No one recognizes me." Like, I recognized you, and I rolled off some film titles, and he said, "You saw all those things?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And he said, "So why are you here?" And I said, "Well, I always find it fascinating to talk to character actors, and usually you folks wind up in books that are that say you know the face, but you don't remember the name. In your case, because you've had this incredible career, uh, that's why I want to talk to you." And he said, "Well, I don't have much time." And I said, "Well, let's get to it." And he said, "Fine, fire away." And I said, "Why did you wind up working with Alan Ladd in 2 years before The Mast?" And he said, "That's a stupid question." And I said, "Well, I'm asking it anyway." And he started to laugh, and he said, "Well, I was under contract to, I think it was Paramount." And he starts telling me the story, and then somewhere in the background, someone says, "Gary, Gary, Gary, I think we have a chance at Redford." And De Silva just stares at me and says, "You're going to leave me, right?" And I said, "No." I said, "Screw Redford. I really am enjoying this conversation." And he says, "Who are you again?" And I said, "My name is Gary Armstrong." And he said, "So why are you here?" I said, "Mr. De Silva, I'm with one of the stations, TV stations from Boston." Okay. So what do you want to talk about? What we're talking about right now. And he lapses over to telling stories about how he was a youngster in Broadway and how he worked with the people. I'm trying to remember the name of the ensemble, but they were the group theater. It was called the group theater, and they had worked with the likes of Clifford Odets and other people back in the late 30s. So he's starting to tell me these stories, and I said, "Excuse me, but we're talking about 2 years before the mast." Then he shoots back, "Are you comparing Clifford Odets with Alan Ladd?" And I said, "Well, I love Ladd and Shane." And he steps back a minute and he said, "I could have been in Shane, but they didn't think I was tall enough." I said, "But Ladd wasn't all that tall." He said, "What's your name again?" I said, "Gary Armstrong, but remember Alan Ladd?" And he said, "Yeah, he was a nice guy, but he didn't have much acting range." And I said, "Well, that isn't really very kind." And he said, "Well, who are you to tell me this? You're a reporter. I'm an actor." And I said, "It also reminds me of your problems with the blacklisting era." And he said, "Yeah, nobody ever talked to me about that." So I said, "Well, I'm asking you about it now." And he starts talking, and before he can finish the sentence, an AD comes over and says, "Mr. De Silva, you're needed." And he looks at me and he apologizes. I walk away, and that same AD came over to me later and said, "Are you interested in doing some extra work on the movie?" And I said, "Is this a joke?" And he said, "No, no, no. Mr. De Silva thinks you might fit in." And I said, "Well, this is weird because this movie is set in either the 20s or the 30s, and it involves Scott Fitzgerald, very elite, very, strange people. And I don't think, because I've read the book and I'm a big Fitzgerald fan, I don't think I would fit in. It wouldn't really be realistic." And the AD says, "Well, Howard De Silva speaks well of you." And I said, "Yeah, right, right, right." So, long story short, I'm called in the next day to do some extra work, and turned into 2 or 3 days. And Howard De Silva was always in the background, sort of smiling and applauding. And I back to work after that. And then I get a call, and they said, "Would you be interested in a speaking role?" And I said, "Is this a joke? Is this Howard De Silva?" And they said, "No, no, 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 no. Someone else saw you doing what you're doing, and they like your style. Would you be interested in doing some speaking stuff?" And I said, "What time do you want me there?" So we go back, and I had maybe 30 seconds or maybe a minute of dialogue. I did it, and the director comes back and says, "Robert Redford was looking at you and wonders who you are." And I said, "Tell Redford to ask Howard De Silva." And the guy says, "Well, fine." The end of the story winds up with they were pleased. And by the way, Francis Ford Coppola was had written the screenplay, and I just eyeballed him. And no, I didn't go to him. Um, they liked the work, and unfortunately, I never made it to the screen. I kind of figured it was because they were sensitive to the southern markets at that time. It was still 1974, and to have a person of color even having a minor role, it might have been a problem. But I wound up on the cutting room floor, and I saw Howard De Silva one more time when they were doing the final wrap on the movie, and he said, you did good work. And I said, I could have been somebody. I really could have been somebody. And he looks at me and says, no, you couldn't have. And what's your name again? And I said, Mr. De Silva, it's been my pleasure. So
Oh,
you're
that's
looking at someone
funny.
who could have been right up there.
Could have been right up there. Hey, it's funny. That reminds me. I also was an extra, but I was an inadvertent extra. It was when I was working at CBS FM. So I
Right.
went to work at Black Rock, which was on the corner of 53rd and 6th, and I used to park in Midtown, so I would walk across 7th Avenue every day. And I gave it no thought. So I'm walking across, and in New York, you're not really paying attention to your surroundings. So as I'm walking across the
Right.
street, something in my brain goes, something isn't right. And I stop in the middle of the street because I notice that the light is green, but everybody on the other side of the street, nobody's crossing the street. Nobody's crossing the
Right.
street from either side. I'm all alone. And I'm wondering what the hell? Why isn't anybody crossing the street? And all of a sudden, at that moment, I almost get run over by the Incredible Hulk, Lou Lou Ferrigno. They were taping
Oh, wow.
the TV show The Incredible Hulk, and they were doing a location shot where the Hulk was just running down 7th Avenue. So as soon as he almost
Right.
runs me over, I go like, my first thought is like, whoa, that's the Incredible Hulk. And then I look in the other direction, and I see the camera crew, and I go like, oh, I busted their shot. Oh fuck,
Oh,
right? So
whoa.
I so I so I immediately walk across the street. I'm embarrassed as all get out. I'm sure that there's an AD that's,
Right.
cursing me. But now I'm watching because, I'm a huge fan. I watch the show. And so I'm
Yeah.
standing, and
Yeah.
there's a guy standing next to me, and a typical New Yorker, and he goes, "Who the fuck is that?" And I went, "Are you kidding? That's the
And he,
I
he
I go,
walked in the
are
set.
are you are you kidding? That's the Incredible Hulk." And he looks and he goes, "What a fucking asshole!" And he walks away, right? And I go like, pure New York, only in New York can the,
Only in New York.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
only in New York. So
That
that
is
was
funny.
that.
That is
So
funny.
it is.
They should
So
have
we did
paid
it
you.
again. I know. Yeah, they should have. Yeah. That
Do you
was great.
realize
So anyway, we did it again.
flip-flopped it? Yeah.
We flip
Yeah.
flopped it, but we, this is one of the first times we actually got in everything that we
Yes.
talked about talking about. So let's.
Yes. I'm
So
so
with that,
proud.
let's I know, let's get to the plugs. Marilyn's blog, Serendipity, Seeking Intelligent Life on Earth. Fool's errand if there ever was one, and that gets proven more and more every day if you watch the news. Uh, Voicescapes Audio Theater, the best in audio comedy and drama. A half-hour radio show, funny but not as funny as reality is these days. And of course, my sister podcast, Get Off My Lawn, starring me. Our latest episode was very timely, and it's called
Yes.
Something That We Shouldn't Have to Say Out Loud. Nazis Are Bad. So with
Yes.
that, all I can say is see you next week.